So it's always been a dream of mine to celebrate New Year's Eve in Sydney, Australia. I mean, they have the first big party of the year. I'm Dan Reed in Sydney, Australia with vacation and voiceover. Check me out. Looking out the window from an elementary school in Brooklyn, I used to dream of this moment right here. I didn't know how. I just knew that one day I was gonna see Australia. I knew that I was gonna be a world traveler. And look at me, a world traveler. But I didn't know how I was gonna do it. This is how. This is so cool. Push it. Push it.
You know you're nerdy. You know that's really nerdy. Fired. Can't take anything. But that is actually cool though. It goes back to back. I thought it was folded up.
So this is my crew right here. We did everything in Sydney together. And I know you're all wondering, who's that with me? The tall guy that looks like me? That's my cousin. Sydney is the first place that I've ever been that had a double-decker subway. Kinda strange, but really cool. But before we get deeper into my Aussie adventure, I gotta take you back a little bit to when I met two Aussies. Remember my hashtag, Voiceover got me here? Well, it starts here with me talking to two voiceover powerhouses right here in Sydney.
Hi, I'm Mark Kennedy of Black Box Voice Productions. This is my partner in crime, Marion Just.
Hi.
And we've been running this company since about 2009. We're nowadays an international audio production company in that we have clients and a portfolio of voiceover artists spread all around the world. It's growing all the time. It's great to have you here, great to have Dane and coming and visiting us.
I'm also a voice artist, and I kind of handle all the administration, the sales and marketing, and searching for the talent all around the world, and I've picked up some amazing talent. We've got some great talent on our portfolio. We've had the company for how long? I've lost track.
Well, it's just gone 2017, so it's 8 years now. And it started off small, of course. In fact, it was more of a part-time thing because I was still working in radio at the time. And then I decided to go more full-time into this around about 3 years ago. And suddenly, an opportunity came to go back to New Zealand, which is where I'm from originally, and team up with my business partner or on-air partner from 25 years prior to that. He and I used to have the #1 breakfast show in Auckland. Somebody came up with the bright idea of putting us back together after a quarter of a century, and it lasted 6 weeks. And we had packed up all the studio. This is portable, it's modular, so we can take it apart, the black box. And you need 4 big Samoan guys to carry this thing, and it's heavy. And we did, packed it into a 40-foot container along with our car, went to New Zealand. We were back in 9 weeks. And at which point I said to Marion, come out of the corporate world, come and work with me full time. You're now a fully fledged voice artist, and I need a lot of help to make this company do what it can do. The way it works with us is we're not an agency. We're happy to work with agents, but basically most of the people we work with are freelance voiceover artists who are based anywhere on the planet. And it's now expanding out into languages other than English, so we're not needing just accents, but also foreign languages. And Marion, when the money comes in, we always pay within 24 hours of the money landing in our account. And Marion just gets such a thrill.
I do. I get terribly excited sitting there just transferring the money. Yeah, transfer. Love it. Just love it. I don't know what it is, but I just love paying people.
You've never paid people before, have you?
Yeah.
The thing that I'd probably tell most people about our business is that it's much, much more involved than people give it credit. So you're going to have people watching this who aren't professional voiceover artists like us, right? And they're going to think, well, I can do that, you know, especially if somebody... So often I get a phone call from somebody saying, oh, look, I'd really like to be a voice artist. I'd say to them, oh, great, okay, what do you do? And they say, oh, I work in a factory, I'm a receptionist, I work in retail. I say, oh, okay, so you're not an actor, you're not a broadcaster. No, okay. I'm going to take a guess here. I bet you your friends or your family have told you you've got a really good voice. Oh, actually, yeah, they have. I say, well, look, a lot of people used to tell me I've got really good legs, but that wouldn't mean necessarily that I'd be a great catwalk model. So that's the starting point you've got to go from, is that there's a lot more to it than just having a good voice. And that's the thing I would say. If you're really serious about getting into voiceovers, then you really need to train, and you need to spend a lot of time and effort and money. And if you're lucky and you work really hard, you just might make it.
So yeah, Mark, you know, when I found out about your company here, I was so excited because, I mean, I've always wanted to come to Australia. And of course, you know, everywhere I go, I always look for work.
Right.
And what I do, you know, as a voiceover talent. So I brought you a gift, right?
It's a demo, right?
This is my
fantastic.
demo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Darling, can you put that where all those go?
Sure.
Tap.
Thanks. So with what you guys do here with Black Box, how do you select your talent?
Yes, we audition talent for our clients, and that's where they will choose. We will pick who we think might be good for that particular job, and the client might say, yep, we really like that talent, or no, give me some more auditions, give me some other talent.
Okay.
So really, it's a negotiation, and it's very much a two-way thing between our client and us and the talent that we provide to them.
Outside of Australia, what countries are really asking for the Australian?
Oh, well, we do actually have clients who are overseas. There's one particular client in Singapore who use our talent for particular e-learning projects. Depends on what their project is and who their target market is. So yes, I think there is. We've experienced that definitely, that Aussie voices are certainly required. As long as they're not, I think they're more looking for more of a cultivated Aussie voice, a la mine, for instance. Yes, yeah, definitely. My husband, my business partner, is laughing in the background. Why are you laughing at me?
Oh, come on, Sheila, tell him how you really speak.
Absolutely not. As I said to Dane, I cannot do that crazy broad accent. I need to work on it, maybe.
I couldn't leave without hearing Marion on the mic. I just couldn't. She's got that great Aussie accent.
This e-learning program covers the 6 steps of new selling essentials in exactly the same way as the face-to-face course. You will experience engaging and interactive learning activities which have been specially adapted for use without the need for a tutor. During the learning, you will be able to print and save documents from the download sections, as well as a summary of each step.
My time with Mark and Marion didn't just end in the studio. No, they drove me around Sydney, showed me things like the Prime Minister's mansion, and made some recommendations for other places that I needed to see.
You can walk over the Sydney Harbour Bridge up to the top.
Okay.
Yeah, phenomenal.
Okay.
You have to get out on the harbour. Sydney Harbour is beautiful.
Okay.
Right? So you get a great view, you go under the bridge, you're going to see the Opera House, maybe out to Manly, but you've got to see it all. There's so many bays, it's beautiful. It would be great if you could do it on New Year's Eve, because then you could see the fireworks.
Okay. So after lunch with Mark and Marion, I was off to explore Sydney with my crew. Now we were ready to see Sydney. If you're anything like me, you enjoy water, green space, and animals. So the first place we checked out were the Royal Botanic Gardens. Right there in the middle of Sydney is this 200-year-old park with beautiful flora, art, ponds, and green space. It's massive, and at one point, while it was about to close, we thought we were gonna get trapped in its gates. After a few hours in the park, we took a trek out to Featherdale National Park to see some of Australia's great treasured wildlife. They weren't so wild when we saw them though. Maybe one or two of them were, but mostly laid back and cool like their Aussie human counterparts. One thing I gotta tell you, you haven't lived till you selfied with a kangaroo. Oh, and Australians are heavy on conservation, by the way, as we learned passing this blue dinosaur. From there, we were back to downtown to check out the famed Sydney Opera House. We, of course, took a ton of pictures. Probably 1,000 in front of the Opera House and 2,000 as we strolled along the harbor on the way to the Sydney Harbour Bridge. So after hanging out all day with the crew, it was time to head back so that we can get dressed for the main event, New Year's Eve 2016. Guys, just a little note, avoid dating your dentist. So this is where the story begins, downtown, near the harbor. We were all dressed up, hopped on the boat, and we were out there for hours, just waiting. There were things going on. There were people lined up all along the shore, trying to get a good view for when the fireworks hit. But on a boat, we had the best view. And we had a good time. If you're ever in Sydney and you want to do this for New Year's Eve, I highly suggest a boat ride. It is the best way. It's a bit expensive, but it's still worth the money. Early in the evening, they start off with some impressive aerial acrobats with some biplanes taking to the skies. But the time between shows can be long, so while some of us selfied and ate meals on the boat, others took the opportunity to catch up on a nap. But when the night comes, it proves to be well worth the wait.
Say hey, babe. Nine, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Salud!
From Sydney, we took a ride up to Cairns. Half of the crew went. The other crew took a ride to New Zealand. We didn't stay long in Cairns and Port Douglas, just long enough to take a boat out to see the Great Barrier Reef, where I put my mediocre swimming skills to the test. And from there, it was off to Melbourne. Melbourne. I think that's how they say it. We spent 2 days in Melbourne. The first day we arrived, we did the usual initial selfies, and then we took to the city. Our first stop was St. Kilda Beach, where we had a very delicious breakfast and walked around. From there, we took the tram down to Flinders Street downtown. Melbourne, by the way, has the largest tram system in the world, so we took full advantage of that, but I'll get into that later. There was a lot going on in downtown Melbourne that day. A lot of people walking around, bike riding, and there was even a slip and slide for the kids. But our first destination was St. Paul's Cathedral, an Anglican church with over 100 years of history, and a place whose message really resonated with me. So I'm sitting outside of St. Paul's Cathedral here in downtown Melbourne. Australia is a place that I dreamed about since I was very, very little and never thought that I would get an opportunity to actually see it, but always hoped that I would. Count your blessings, count your fortunes, whatever it is that you believe in, and just believe in your abilities to make it happen. And I definitely have done this throughout my travels, and Melbourne to Sydney to Cairns, where I snorkel with the Great Barrier Reef. This has been an amazing experience. Melbourne and Sydney are two very different kinds of cities, each with its own distinct personality. To me, Melbourne was much more of a cosmopolitan type city. At least that was my take on it. It has a lot of European elements with a bit of New York and a dab of Chicago even, but with an Aussie twist to it, of course. After all, in none of those places would you find a Macca's or Hungry Jack's. And remember when I mentioned that extensive network of trams? Well, we hopped on and off the Free City Circle, which takes mostly tourists around the downtown areas to different sites, from museums to Parliament House to other cool spots and back again. And when we got back again, we hit up the Eureka Skydeck atop the city's tallest building. I like views from tall buildings. The sky deck is cool because the deck actually slides out from the building and you can look down below from the glass floor. Unfortunately, while you're in it, they won't let you take your own pictures. After all, how would they be able to sell you the pictures that they take of you? Our last adventure in Victoria was the Great Ocean Road Tour, 13-hour bus tour along the southeast coast of Australia, which took us to beaches, forests, and gorgeous coastlines. And flies. Lots and lots of flies. More flies than I had ever seen in my life. In fact, while this tour saw some of the greatest views I had ever seen, it was marred by the infestation of these nasty pests. But you'll see what I mean. The Great Ocean Road Tour for us was a one-day thing, but for some people, it can be a multiple-day adventure. For 120 Aussie dollars, we hopped aboard the bus from Melbourne and took off for the adventure, making stops at notable and some not-so-notable destinations. But the highlight of the tour is definitely the 12 Apostles. I had seen these rocks sticking out of the ocean in amazing formation on screensavers before, but never knew where in the world they were. Now I was face to face with them. Although they have no religious significance, and there aren't even 12 of them, they are spectacular nonetheless. Along the way, we encountered gorgeous and amazing inland beaches like this one surrounded by caves. So was the 13-hour trip worth it? Absolutely not. At this point, you're probably wondering why. Go back and look at some of the footage I've shown. The flies are so big and numerous that at one point we refused to leave the bus. Yeah, that bad. Look what happens as I try to blog. So this space right here is really beautiful, but I don't know if you noticed from footage that I shot earlier, there are a lot of flies. But I mean, if you really just look at that. I mean, it's crazy. I've never been so annoyed by flies before in my entire life. And even in still pictures, you can see us swatting them away. It was bad. Maybe it would have been better in the wintertime, but we went in the summer. And from there, our Australian adventure was basically over. We hopped a flight back to Sydney the next day and back to LA the following evening. I really loved this place, and it lived up to the expectations that I had for it. I have to say that there was so much that we didn't do, but what we did do that I will forever remember was meet some of the nicest people I've ever encountered in the world. And I mean that. Australians are really cool people.